yourself struggling with debt? Or better yet, do you find yourself getting out of debt and a couple of years later you find yourself right back in the same spot that you were in with the same debt as before? Well, don't worry about it. We've all been there. We've all struggled with it. And today we're going to take it back to basics. Today I'm going to discuss with you 7 budgeting tips for beginners that will help us stay on track of our finances and help us stay out of debt for good. I myself personally was in the same situation, and I was able to use these same tips to turn my debt around and save over $40,000 in the past 2 years, and that's more than I've ever saved in my entire lifetime. So if you're ready to tackle that debt once and for all, sit back and relax, grab yourself a snack, and let's get into these budgeting tips right now. Hey, what's up guys? My name is Chris. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching my video today. So like I said, we're going to get back to basics today. We're going to discuss 7 budgeting tips for beginners to help us manage our money effectively and try to tackle this debt once and for all. And the reason I call it 7 budgeting tips for beginners, sometimes you got to go back to the beginning, back to the basics to remember why you started this journey in the first place to help get yourself back on track. So with that being said, let's hop right into these tips and let's start with budgeting tip number 1, which is setting your financial goal before you can even create a budget. So Chris, what do you mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is before you can even create a budget, what is the financial goal that you're trying to obtain? What is it that you're wanting to do with your money? Are you trying to get out of debt? Are you trying to pay off loans? Are you trying to save money for something big that you want to do? Maybe it's your sister's wedding that's coming up and you guys are all going out of the country for a wedding. Maybe you're trying to save for that. Or maybe your child will be driving soon and you'd like to put some money down to help them get a car. No matter what the situation is, you have to set up those goals to figure out how you want to save that money to obtain those goals. And that's the very first step we have to do no matter what. We have to plan out what we want to do and how we're going to execute it. I know for myself personally, my goal was to pay off my credit cards for the very last time. I had paid them off before just to run them back up again and be in the same situation that I was previously. So I sat down and I figured out how I was going to pay off that credit card debt. I decided to pay off the lowest amount to the highest amount and tackle each card one by one and how much money it would take for me to pay those credit cards off. And I set myself an end goal of when I wanted it to be paid off. So when you're setting your financial goals, make sure you do something that's obtainable, but make sure you also set a goal, a realistic goal, to make sure you can get it paid off in time. Budgeting tip number 2, we need to create a budget. So some of you may be thinking, what is a budget? So a budget is just a plan for your money. Whether you do that on paper, whether you do it digitally, whether you do it up here, you have to plan out your expenses for the month. So some of those expenses are what? We know we have to pay mortgage and rent. We know we have to pay car notes for those of us who have car notes. We have to pay for groceries. We have to pay for gas. We have to pay for food. We have to pay for any of those utility bills or any of those other bills that we may have during the month. We have to create a budget around that. And whatever is left after we pay all of the necessary bills is what we can use to allocate for savings. So you want to start applying a budget for the money that you have left over so you can figure out how you are going to save for the things that you want to do, whether it's to pay off debt or to pay for that wedding you know your sister's going to have next year. You want to take that money and you want to figure out how much you're going to need by setting your goal and how much you're going to need to save from that budget every month. Budgeting tip number 3, you have to track your spending. So in order to make that budget work that you just created, you got to track your spending. You've got to track where your money is going. Now, I know this may be the hardest task. Setting your financial goal and creating a budget, that's the easy part, right? Tracking what you're spending your money on every month can be such a tedious task, but you have to do it. You have to know where your money is going in order to figure out what you can cut back on, where you can save here. Do I need those coffees every morning? Do I need to eat out every day? Tracking your expenses is such an important tip, and you will be surprised after you track your expenses and where you see you can cut back how much money you'll truly have. For example, with myself, I cut back on going out spending money on coffee every day. It's amazing how much it adds up and how much money you can save when you make your coffee at home. And I don't miss it one bit. Now that's the thing. You're going to have to change your mindset. We're so used to doing something every day that becomes a pattern. Now we have to shift those things. If we're truly serious about saving or paying off those things that we want to pay off, we're going to have to cut back on some things. Okay, so I know I just said tracking your expenses is the hardest thing, but I think I'm going to take that back. Budgeting tip number 4, sticking to the budget, that may be the hardest thing. And let me tell you why. In the beginning, you're going to set yourself a budget and you're going to track your expenses. Now, the hard part is going to be making sure you keep up with that every month and making sure you stay on top of it. This cannot be you do it one time and everything is over and done with and you've taken care of everything. It doesn't work that way. You're going to have to stick to this budget. It's going to have to be a part of your life, a part of discipline, just like you do with anything else in life. For example, if you go to the gym every day, that's a part of your routine, and sticking to this budget is going to have to be a part of your routine too if you want to be disciplined enough to reach that goal that you set. That's the only way that you're going to make it happen. You've got to create that budget. You've got to track your expenses, and you've got to stick to it every month until you reach that goal and even beyond that. All right, you guys, I hope you're enjoying these budgeting tips so far. Is it making sense? Are you going to start using these budgeting tips to help you save for what you want to save for or to help you pay off that debt? Comment down below. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know where you're going to start. Let me know where you get stuck. And while you're here, I hope that you don't mind to go ahead and press that like button. And also, if you're not subscribed, make sure you go ahead and subscribe. All right, you guys, let's get into budgeting tip number 5, and that is saving for an emergency fund. Have you started saving for an emergency fund? Well, it's something you may want to think about because an emergency fund is just that. It is one of those unexpected expenses that will sneak up on you, especially when you are trying to reach this goal that you created for yourself, especially when you're trying to create this budget, especially when you're trying to cut back. All of a sudden, here comes an emergency, and we have to take care of it. So while you're making sure that you're doing everything to stay on top of reaching this goal, to pay off your debt or whatever it may be, make sure you're putting money aside in case an emergency happens. And that emergency amount can be whatever is important to you at that time or whatever the amount may be that may suit your lifestyle. You can start off with $250. You can start off with $500. That can be for, an insurance deductible in case something happened. You can start off with $1,000 in case something happened and you needed to pay your mortgage or your rent, or if something happened that you had to get your new appliance or something. Whatever your situation may be, start saving money for an emergency so that it doesn't interfere with the goals that you have set. All right, and budgeting tip number 6, now that we've gotten everything set up, we got our financial goals set, we're tracking our expenses, we created a budget, we're sticking to it, we're saving an emergency fund. Now, let's talk about that debt we have. How important is it to you to get this debt paid off? How much is it? What kind of debt are we looking at? Are we looking at student loans? Are we looking at a car loan? Are we looking at, some credit card fees that we have? Are we looking at personal loans that we've taken out? Once you start getting in the mindset of creating that budget and sticking to it, now let's see how we want to tackle that debt, because once you get that debt paid off, not only will it be the greatest feeling and accomplishment in the world, but you will also realize how much extra money you have from not paying those minimum fees every month, and they just keep on tacking interest on for unpaid balances. So go ahead and get that debt paid off. I know it may seem hard now, tackle it slowly, but once you get it paid off, then you'll be able to realize how much money you can actually save and put away. That is exactly what happened to me. Once I paid off my last credit card, and I sang and I screamed hallelujah all across my house, then I got serious about saving money. And by using the cash envelope system, I've been able to save over $40,000 within the past 2 years. And you can too, but you got to be serious about paying off that debt to get started saving. And now you guys, you've made it to our last budgeting tip. What do you think it's going to be? The last budgeting tip number 7, is to make sure you're reviewing your budget often. What do I mean by that? Well, the budget you created several months ago may not be the same budget that applies now. You may have gotten a promotion at work. You may have come across some money. You may have paid off some debt and now you find you have extra money. Now that you have extra money, now you can put that money towards other things that you've been wanting to save for. Have you been wanting to save for a remodel of your house? Have you been wanting to save for new tires? Have you been wanting to paint your house? Whatever the case may be, you need to check your budget often, because it changes and you can shift things around. So you're not tied down to the original budget that you created, especially once you reach those goals in which you created the budget for. Now you set new goals and you set a new budget. Now that you have extra money coming in because you saved for that wedding that you were saving for and the wedding's over, or now that you've paid off those 3 pesky credit cards that you've finally gotten rid of and you have some extra money, now create a new budget and see how you can allocate that money. The point is, a budget is always changing and you don't have to stick to the original budget that you created. You can always change it. You can always move with it. And this will help you save more money than you ever had before. All right, you guys, so there you have it. There's my 7 budgeting tips for beginners and getting back to basics to make sure we're taking control of our money. Remember, a budget is just a plan on how you're going to use your money, and you have the control over that budget and your money, not the other way around. So when you're finally serious about getting that debt paid off or saving for those things that you want to save for and cutting back on those expenses that you know that are not necessary, you will find yourself saving more and more money than you ever had before and tackling your debt and managing your money effectively. So I hope you guys enjoyed those 7 budgeting tips. And if you're looking for more ways to figure out how to save your money, or what are some different categories you can save your money and how to budget, why don't you go ahead and click on this box right here where I show you different methods of saving money and how it can be used to save money for different categories and different expenses that you want to tackle. And I will talk to you guys next week. Bye.